Okay, imagine this scenario. You've, done everything you were supposed to do, got the education, landed a respectable job, maybe you've even started a family. On the surface, it really looks like you've, well, made it.
Hmm.
But then beneath all that, there's this quiet, nagging kind of dread keeps
Mhm.
you up at night. You find yourself asking, what if I lose my job? Or maybe is this respectable life I've built just, I don't know, an illusion?
Right, that feeling.
That unsettling feeling, exactly. That's what we're diving into today. This deep dive is all about the fear of middle class decline when economic anxiety meets identity crisis.
And our mission, really, is for you to get to the heart of this anxiety.
Hmm.
It's so pervasive, we'll explore its roots, the economic pressures, which are undeniable, but also the deeper psychological stuff, which can be quite surprising. We're going to look at how systemic instability plays into this feeling of being, well, under siege.
Hmm.
Even for highly educated professionals, in places like China, the U.S., it feels personal, but it's actually a global thing.
So, okay, let's really try and unpack this. What exactly are these highly educated professionals, the ones who seem to have truly made it, what are they so anxious about?
Our sources point to a whole stack of really specific pressures, like hyper competition, not just at work, but even in finding a partner, in
Yeah,
marriage.
that's a big one.
And then you add the weight of aging parents, biological clocks ticking, relentless inflation eating away at savings, and the cost of raising kids. It's just getting, well, dizzying. It's a lot to carry, isn't it?
It really is. And what's fascinating is how these anxieties, these individual worries, they aren't just happening in a vacuum. They connect directly to these bigger collective systemic symptoms. This isn't about you failing personally. That's key. It's a shared experience
Hmm.
driven by larger forces. I mean, look at China's 996 work culture. That's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not just a number. It's this relentless treadmill defining millions of lives. It drives this deep collective unease, this constant feeling of precarity.
Right. Or think about the student debt crisis in America.
Yeah.
It feels like a personal burden, right?
Yeah.
But it's become this huge national economic drag, basically trapping generations in, like financial quicksand. A- And our sources even talk about Japan's impoverished yet polished urban women. They look successful, putting together.
Mm-hmm.
But behind the scenes, they're struggling. Financial instability, maybe insecure work.
It really drives home that point, doesn't it? That the middle class genuinely feels under siege. It's like
Absolutes.
this shared, almost silent struggle happening all over the world. And what's really compelling when we look at the data, this feeling of being under siege, it isn't just stories. Our sources show there's a real documented trend behind it. They often talk about this concept of the M-shaped society.
Exactly. And what's really insightful about that M-shaped society idea,
Hmm.
it's not just about like income gaps widening. It's more
Okay.
fundamental. It's like society is losing its economic middle ground. People are getting pushed either towards the very top or they're struggling down at the bottom.
So the middle is hollowing out.
Pretty much. Yeah, it changes everything. Consumer markets, political stability, you name it. And if we look globally, the reasons for this decline, well, they vary a bit by region, but the underlying pressure, remarkably consistent. In the U.S., you see people just overwhelmed, skyrocketing costs for housing, healthcare, that student debt we mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
plus those stable middle-income jobs, they're disappearing. Automation, the rise of the gig economy, security is being replaced by uncertainty.
And in China.
Well, in China, many people look middle class, on paper, but they're basically living paycheck to paycheck. Huge mortgages, crushing school fees for their kids, rising costs for everything. They're becoming middle class in name only, really.
And this decline, this pervasive economic uncertainty, it must lead to some serious identity confusion for people. You end up thinking, hang on, I followed the rules. I'm supposed to be inside the system, so why do I suddenly feel like I'm on the edge?
Yeah, that dissonance is powerful. And the experience you mentioned from Tokyo's poor women illustrates this so vividly. It's almost heartbreaking. You have these educated, well-dressed working women,
Right.
but they're facing hidden poverty. Their income might be unstable. The social safety net is thin.
Right?
Their relationships often don't offer a financial cushion. So maybe a single health crisis or a divorce.
Hmm.
It could mean total financial ruin. It just paints this picture of extreme fragility.
Wow.
And honestly, that scenario echoes way beyond Tokyo. You hear similar stories from Beijing, from the Bay Area, highly educated professionals who, meticulously follow the script, good grades, good job.
Get everything right.
Exactly. And they still find they can't afford a home or they're struggling to care for aging parents. Promotions feel impossible to get. It's like they're playing a rigged game.
That's incredibly powerful. But, for someone listening who has followed all the rules, done everything right, isn't the tendency just to blame yourself? How do the sources help listeners see this isn't just like a personal failing?
That's such a crucial point. And the sources really emphasize that while, yes, individual effort matters, these are fundamentally systemic issues. That gnawing question you hear people asking themselves, is all my effort just self-consolation? That really highlights the psychological toll. It's the toll of realizing that just working hard might not be enough anymore to get that promised middle-class life. It's a collective disillusionment, not just, individual inadequacy.
Okay, so it's clear this anxiety isn't just about those external pressures we've talked about. It's also deeply tied to specific internal traps, things we as individuals can kind of inadvertently fall into.
It's absolutely right. Let's break those down. First, you've got the economic traps. Things like high fixed costs, mortgages, car payments, kids' education expenses that are really hard to cut back on quickly.
Right, they lock you in.
Exactly. Then there's the income ceiling. For many professionals, salaries eventually plateau. It gets harder and harder to significantly increase your earnings or savings. There's also often low risk tolerance. If you don't have much excess capital or a strong safety net, you just can't afford to jump into those higher return, but also riskier ventures.
Makes sense.
And finally, there's that persistent pressure of lifestyle lock-in, social expectations, keeping up appearances. It makes it hard to scale back, even if it's the financially smart thing to do.
Okay, those are the economic ones. And then there's the internal side, the psychological traps. These feel just as powerful, maybe even more insidious sometimes. We're talking about that pervasive uncertainty, knowing that stable, lifelong jobs, they're pretty much gone for most people. Then there's comparison anxiety, constantly fueled by social media, right? Everyone else's life looks impossibly perfect online.
Oh, definitely.
Perfectionism creeps in, leading to these totally unrealistic expectations for your own life. And then there are two really interesting ones, sort of from behavioral economics, control illusion.
Yeah, where we overestimate how much personal influence we actually have over these huge systemic forces, like thinking you can individually manage, global economic shifts.
Right. And the other one, loss aversion.
Ah, yes. That's a big one. The psychological pain of losing something status, a job, even just perceived stability. It's consistently way more powerful than the joy of gaining something of equal value. We're wired to avoid loss.
So we cling to what we have, even if it's not making us happy.
Precisely. It's as if people are following this unspoken social template. A good job, big house, a debt, maybe the designer bag, send the kids to private school, and boom, success. But for so many people now, that script feels increasingly out of reach, or maybe even hollow if they do achieve parts of it. And this raises a really important question for you listening. Does that template actually match what you truly need? Our sources are pretty clear on this. Just having more money alone won't silence that fear. And neither will, purely spiritual practices on their own. You need something more integrated, more sustainable way to live.
That point about needing a sustainable model, something beyond just chasing those external markers of success, that feels really crucial. And it kind of begs the question, how do we even define middle class anymore in this changing landscape? Let's maybe contrast the traditional view with something more nuanced.
Okay, so the traditional view usually defines middle class pretty simply, right? Income level, job status, maybe owning property. And the pros of that definition are obvious. It implies a certain level of autonomy, security, maybe room for personal growth.
Sure.
But the cons are significant too. It can push towards endless consumption, promote pretty one-dimensional values focused on materialism, and sometimes lead to relationships centered mostly around money.
Right. Okay, so what's the alternative?
Well, there's Bourdieu's view, the sociologist Pierre Bourdieu. He shifts the focus dramatically. He argued that being middle class isn't just about income. It's profoundly about cultural capital and lifestyle.
Cultural capital, what does that mean exactly?
It's basically the subtle ways we signal our status and belonging through things like our taste, our education, our social networks. It's not just some academic theory. Bourdieu thought this cultural capital is almost as powerful as economic capital in shaping our place in society, especially for the middle class. Think about concrete examples. Preferring organic food, maybe watching indie films instead of blockbusters, going to certain boutique coffee shops.
Okay, I see.
Also having educated social circles, putting a really strong emphasis on your kids' holistic education, enrichment activities, things like that. These are all markers.
And that cultural capital, it's interesting. It seems more stable than just money, right? You don't lose your education or your taste overnight if the stock market crashes.
True, it has that stability.
But It's probably slower to convert into actual income.
Mhm.
It can be expensive to maintain that lifestyle. It might even lead to a kind of social isolation if your choices are very different. And maybe, potentially, could it be a form of denial? Or even feeling morally superior, like judging others who don't share your cultural awareness?
That's a sharp observation. And it really makes you pause and consider. Maybe ask yourself, is your sense of being cultured partly an escape from material insecurity? It's a really crucial question to wrestle with, I think, especially today.
Yeah, definitely food for thought. So, given all these challenges we've laid out, the external pressures, the internal traps, how can individuals actually build resilience? Our sources mention insights from Poor Economics by Banerjee and Duflo. They link poverty not just to lack of money, but also to things like short-term thinking, lack of planning, maybe poor self-control.
Right. So drawing from that and other insights, the key traits for resilience that emerge are things like being able to delay gratification, managing risk smartly, not avoiding it entirely, but managing it, optimizing the resources you do have, even if they're limited, continuously learning and adapting, and setting clear, actionable goals for yourself.
And these traits matter more than just income level.
Often, yes. Think about it. A frugal planner who earns, say, $20,000 might actually be more financially stable and less anxious than a reckless spender earning $50,000 but living right on the edge, paycheck to paycheck.
That makes sense.
So ultimately, middle-class resilience today seems to be this potent mix of basic financial literacy, definitely some psychological insight into your own patterns, and just fundamental adaptability.
Okay, so that leads us to some concrete, practical strategies you can actually use. On the financial side, the sources strongly recommend building a robust emergency fund. That's key. Aim for, ideally, 6 months of living expenses, so if you lose your job, it's not an immediate catastrophe.
Absolutely crucial.
Also, diversifying investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Focus on growing your income through developing skills, not just chasing small raises by job hopping. And, critically important, cut back on that status-driven spending, the stuff that just traps you in debt and makes you compare yourself to others constantly.
Exactly. And then there are the mental strategies. This is about a profound shift, really. It starts with redefining success, but on your own terms, not based on what society or social media tells you. It means actively accepting uncertainty as part of life now and preparing for it rather than constantly fighting it or pretending it doesn't exist. And consciously investing your precious time and energy in what genuinely brings you meaning. Maybe that's community, family, creativity, whatever it is for you. Not just chasing the next promotion or the next purchase. Find your purpose beyond the material.
That all sounds really valuable. But hang on a second. While these individual strategies are vital, I have to ask, can we really self-help our way out of what feels like, for many, a broken system? Even with the best personal habits? If the structure itself is shaky, doesn't this feel like a bigger picture problem?
It absolutely is. And the sources make this argument very powerfully. Individual resilience, while totally essential, just isn't enough on its own. Without broader social support, without systemic changes, middle-class life is going to remain fundamentally fragile. You can be the most disciplined, financially savvy person,
Right.
but if the system itself is sort of designed against stability for the many, you're constantly swimming upstream. It's exhausting.
So what kind of systemic reforms are we talking about here? What did the sources mention?
They're pretty clear on some key areas, things like universal health care and robust social security systems, safety nets that catch you when you fall, basically. Truly equal access to quality education and good jobs, not just opportunities for a privileged few.
Yeah.
Broad risk-sharing systems, think comprehensive insurance, effective welfare programs that actually help people get back on their feet, and maybe, fundamentally, creating a culture that genuinely accepts and values diverse life choices, that doesn't just hold up that one narrow success script as the only way.
Because otherwise,
Otherwise, resilience,
Yeah.
without that kind of reform, it just becomes another burden. Another thing piled onto individuals, telling them it's all up to them to fix things when the system itself needs fixing.
Yeah, I see that. We often hear this kind of advice, don't we? Be different, live boldly, break the mold. But the reality is we always live inside some kind of existing structure. We can't just wish them away.
Exactly. The goal isn't really to escape these structures entirely because, let's face it, that's often impossible or impractical. Instead, it's about finding room for agency, for freedom within those structures. And freedom, in this context, it comes from really knowing the rules, understanding the game you're playing,
Okay.
and then consciously choosing where and how you can improvise, where you can maybe bend the rules a bit, where you can make it your own without completely breaking everything.
So instead of just rejecting those social templates outright, the good job, big house thing, the suggestion here is more like decode them, understand how they work, adapt them to fit your actual life, your values,
Mm.
and crucially, figure out where you can bend the rules without causing a disaster. It's about like conscious navigation, not just naive rebellion.
Well put. And this raises, I think, a final, really important question for you, the listener, to reflect on. Define what's truly enough for you and think about why. What does that actually look like?
Ultimately, what we've explored today really shows that this middle-class anxiety, it's very real. You can feel it. It's palpable for so many people. But it's not an absolute, inescapable fate.
Yeah. In this deep dive, we've tried to unpack the economic roots, the psychological drivers of this insecurity. We've looked at that idea of cultural capital, its illusions, but also its real value. And we've talked about that blend of personal strategies you can use alongside the absolute necessity for broader social solutions.
And maybe the core takeaway here is that what you need isn't just another empty hustle slogan you see online or some kind of shallow therapy talk. What you need is structural awareness, understanding the bigger picture, real mental clarity about your own values and traps, personal agency, the power to make conscious choices, and ultimately the freedom to redefine what success and peace genuinely look like for you.
So that maybe, just maybe, you can live not in constant fear of decline, but with a sense of grounded presence, deep resilience, and quiet strength.